Unit 8, Geometry. In this unit, we're going to look at different types of lines and how to make them. Then we're going to look at graphing things on a coordinate grid, and then of course rotating it and translating it, or in some cases reflecting it. So we'll start off with some of the basics here first. Before we get into what these guys, using these two tools, it's interesting to know first that this one here, a lovely looking protractor, is a tool used for measuring angles, and you should be quite familiar with that by now. You just simply place this little part right on the vertex of where you want to start your angle, and then you measure it up, and then you can measure your angle and see how big it is. This one right here is a compass, and this compass here is used to draw a lovely circle, or sometimes you're going to need to draw arc. So if I just kind of turn him like that, I can draw a perfect arc, and you should have one of these as well, and they're pretty easy to use once you put the pencil into them. So these two devices are going to be crucial for this first part of this unit. Okay, getting right into it. A quick review of types of lines. The first one is a parallel lines. So parallel lines are lines that will never meet. So if I draw a couple of little, there we go, symbols there that show this line is always going, they will never meet, they never join, they will always, if I keep extending it more and more, they will never touch each other, no matter which direction, as you can see. They're parallel, like train tracks or like most highways should be. So the next type over here is the same thing. Parallel lines, but in this case they're facing up and down. Okay, so parallel lines can be sideways, up or down, or in this case, they're diagonal. Okay, they'll never meet. They're the same distance apart from there, and they're the same distance apart between there. So I can measure the distance here and measure the distance here, and it should be exactly the same thing, just like train tracks. Hey, the easiest way to make a set of parallel lines, besides cheating like me and doing it on the computer, I could simply make one line here like that. So just using a ruler and this protractor, I'm going to choose a point on this line, and I'm going to call it C. So I'll go over and make a point right here, and I'll call this one C. There. Now I'm going to take my protractor, I'm going to rotate it so that it is upside down. Okay. You could have done it the other way, but I'm going to put this point right here on my dot. And of course, line it up so that it's on my line, almost like I'm going to measure it to see what angle it is. Now the only thing left to do now is go ahead and take a 90-degree angle. So there's 90 degrees. I'm simply going to make a mark right at 90 degrees. So it should be, oops, it is actually easier to do if I'm not using a, so I'll just make a mark with a line here. So here's my 90-degree mark right there. There. Okay, so that would be 90 degrees, and I'll try to put it right at the very tip of my protractor so I know exactly where it's going. Let's see. Here we go. Got it right there. Done. So that's done. So I make sure I put it right there on my protractor. Now I'm going to need to make another point just down here a little bit, and I can call that whatever I want. I'm going to call it E. And I'll do the exact same thing. I'll put it right on that point I just made, and of course line up the line with the line, and then go straight down again and make sure that I put it right at the tip of my compass, right at 90 degrees, or protractor, sorry, and I put it right there. There. Now I'll move him out of the way, and if I did it right, I made sure that they were right at the edge of my protractor. All I got to do now is take a ruler, of course, and join the two lines together. Of course, I can get it to go through pretty easily with what I'm using. There you go. And you've got your line done. And I'm going to make it a little bit longer there. So that's how you'll make two lines that are parallel using a protractor. And it's pretty easy to do that way. The compass is a little bit harder to do. I'm going to leave the compass for a separate lesson a little bit later on, but that's the easiest way to make parallel lines. Okay, when you're looking at the other type of lines, remember, parallel lines will go alongside each other and never touch. Perpendicular lines will touch. Perpendicular lines simply are lines that meet together, like that, to form a perfect corner. So I could use this right here. So it forms a perfect corner or a right angle. That would be a 90-degree angle. So I'll go back and steal the protractor, or sorry, the compass from here. Oh, protractor, sorry. All right, so I'll steal that one. I'll paste him here, and we end up with 90 degrees. And I can measure that just to make sure, but I think you can pretty much tell a 90-degree angle when you see one. 90 degrees. So it's perpendicular as long as it meets at a 90-degree angle. It's still perpendicular. Still perpendicular right there. So that is a perpendicular line. I can rotate it whatever way I want, as long as, of course, I might as well get rid of this little block. I don't need him. I can move him whatever way I want, as long as I don't change the fact that it's a perfectly good corner. So that's perpendicular. Any lines you can tell if it is perpendicular. You can make a whole lot of lines. So I could make, let me see, just throw a bunch in. There, 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 and there. And then I could ask you, can you tell me which lines are perpendicular lines? And of course, this one here and this one looks like it's making a perfectly good right angle. I could measure it to make sure. This one's not. This is not a right angle. Doesn't look to me like there's too many more. This one might be close. Might be close to a right angle, but I'd have to measure it to make sure using my protractor. So that is perpendicular lines. An easy way to draw a perpendicular line, of course, if you have a little tool like a triangle, you can simply use your triangle to draw a perpendicular line. So you just draw a line across like this, and then of course you'll go ahead and put your triangle right on it, because triangles that have a right angle like this, you can simply just measure it up and there you go. Perfect. Now I have a perpendicular lines. Now they're not intersecting each other, but I could have them intersecting each other like that if I wish. So that's all there is to recognizing perpendicular lines. Now, how do we make perpendicular lines? Well, I showed you how to make them earlier, but we can make perpendicular lines with a protractor, and it's pretty easy to bisect a line using a perpendicular bisector, but there's a few things you need to know first. Before we get into that, you need to know what a right angle is. And remember, a right angle is simply an angle that meets, like that, a corner that's 90 degrees. That's a right angle. If I say the word bisector, if you think about bi means two, or to divide it in two. Bisector means you're splitting it up. So it splits it into two halves, two pieces, whatever. And a diagonal simply means if it's going in a straight line from one corner to another, kind of like that. That's diagonal. So we're going to make a perpendicular bisector. So let's do it using a ruler. And I think I'll just put a straight line there first, I believe. So let's do a straight line going right across here. Now, what I want to do is I want to bisect or cut this line in half, but I want it to be straight up and down, or in other words, perpendicular. So this is perpendicular, but it doesn't cut the line in half or bisect the line. So it's just perpendicular. This is perpendicular, but it doesn't split the line in half. So it's going to have to be somewhere about there, or, even if we wanted it like that, probably be about there. But how do we draw it properly or fairly easy? Well, the easiest way to do it, once I delete it, there. The easiest way to do it using a ruler and a protractor is simply take your ruler. So I'll make a ruler pop out here. There we go. Now I'm going to take a ruler and I'm going to put him right here. And I'm going to measure my line. Now for the purpose of this one and the type of ruler that I do have, I'm going to shrink my line here to something that's pretty easy to find the middle of. Okay? So I take my line here like this, and let's say I have 4. Let's say my line is 4. Well, what's half of 4? 4 divided by 2, or half of 4, is going to be 2. That's pretty easy. So half of 4 is 2. So I'm going to put a little tiny dot right where 2 is. There. So that's halfway in between my line. Now the only thing I need to do now in order to bisect it and make it perpendicular is to take something that I've used already a few times, and that is my protractor. And I'm going to go right down on my dot here, and I'm going to make sure that this is right centered on my dot and the line is on the line. Now the only thing left to do, of course, is to put a little dot right here where 90 degrees is. Done. So then all I have to do is move my protractor and connect this dot straight up through to that one, using your ruler, of course. It's much easier using your ruler. So connect through, and now I've made a nice perpendicular. It's perpendicular, and of course this side here is equal to this side. That's what these symbols show. So that's a perpendicular bisector using a ruler and a protractor, and that is by far the easiest way to make it.